to episode 6 of The Classroom. We are having a bit of a special one this week. We are doing an extra one later on in the week, with a bit of a surprise add-in, and we'll sort of see how that goes, and we'll introduce that later on at the end of the show. This week's going to be a special one. We've got two main topics. We're going to review our picks of the week from last week, and we'll just sort of rock through it, see how we do. For me today, I'm rocking the LeBron 2012 Team USA jersey. You'll find out why I'm rocking the LeBron jersey later on, but that's what I've got. Corey, down to you. How you doing this week, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Took a bit of an L when it comes to trainers this week. Decided that I was going to have a night on Zoom with my pals on Friday, so I didn't get up Saturday morning and didn't get the fours in the raffle either. So serious L's this week. And
in other areas, and we'll find them out later. Corey, how are you doing? Not Corey, I've just spoke to Corey. Wayne, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad, usual me. I'm glad to be back. Sorry, guys, I didn't make the last episode. I'm at work.
That's fine, mate. We understand work comes first. I get that. JP, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Apart from my predictions, everything else seems to be all right. But yeah, bit of a downer on the weekend. But apart from that, we're ready to go again.
Yeah, it's good to hear. We are back going again. Just a little heads up, boys. For the last 2 weeks, we've had some different sponsors sponsoring the show, and this week I couldn't come up with one until I got the message late on Friday night in terms of the Powered team through Instagram. So they are dropping us off some gear. I think some clothing gear, and that will be coming to my house first, and then I'll distribute off to you guys later on, and we'll share that out with the team, and we'll get sort of tweeting and Instagram with those guys. So nice to have a real sponsor this time instead of some.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, I'm a fan of an actual sponsor.
Unfortunately, I reckon we could have made about 70 different shows with 70 different sponsors, but I think even Eastbourne Seafront might be one segment. And then look at reviewing our picks. We had two games that we looked at last week, which were the Lakers at home to Portland, and then we had the Clippers traveling down to Milwaukee to face the Bucks. When we look at the table, which is posted up on Instagram, after the first one, apologies, Wayne, didn't mean to do that. New post has gone out with the real scores. So to let you guys know, Wayne had 2 from 2 this week, picking LA, and then also picking the only one to pick Giannis and the Bucks to beat Clippers. So the 2 for 2 for Wayne. I went 1 for 1. I took 1 for 2. Sorry, I took LA Lakers to beat Portland, and then I had a slip up when I took Clippers to beat the Bucks, but not bigger slip up with JP and Corey going 0 for 2 this week, having a huge L, 2 big L's this week with that. So the current standings, we have Wayne at 6, I at 5, JP Corey down. It's a big week coming up this week. I'm going to explain that today's show, and then again on our extra Friday episode. So you will find out more and bigger opportunities to catch some more dubs. So the first game we're going to review today, have a look back at, which is myself and Wayne. We're going to look at the Lakers Portland Trailblazers game. Okay, and as I said just then, Lakers took the dub on that. Wayne, what was your take on that game?
Well, my MVP of the game was LeBron James. He had 28 points, 7 assists, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks. It was a really good game to watch. I feel like we know the Lakers are missing a big, but watching that game, maybe it's because it's against Portland, but they looked good the way they played that as a whole team. They didn't shoot the free very, very well, but got a lot of rebounds. I think they got, as a whole team, they got, what is it? I don't even know. But anyway, they got a lot of rebounds compared to the Trailblazers. They passed the ball really well, and they got a lot of points in the paint. They got 52 points in the paint compared to 30 for the Trailblazers, which is really key. But it shows that they just, with shooter back, it gives LeBron James a bit more comfort to like move around and stuff. And I saw like you can see LeBron James he's got good chemistry with Caruso, and it really showed against the Portland Trailblazers. The way they was playing, it just looked so fluid.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's two big takeaway parts from the Lakers' point of view. I thought that was a hell of a game from LeBron. I think that went LeBron to show, and I said it last week, I don't think he deliberately goes up against Melo, but whenever he plays Melo, he wants to show why he's still the best out of that draft class. And I know they're friends, but that doesn't stop anyone. And I think that is the most sort of well-rounded performance LeBron James had in a couple of seasons now, proving that you can still do it at that age. But my two biggest takeaways are actually the Dennis Schroeder back from injury, because it's huge. I think that changes the rotation and the bench rotation. And we highlighted that in last week or the week before about having that additional guard to then move Wes Matthews back on the bench. You're not bringing him in early. You're not Caruso than he does normally. And then I also think the move that Frank Vogel did in terms of bringing on Marcus Morris was huge, and starting Morris. He instead of having Gasol and Kuzma, he put Kuzma back down to the bench role, which isn't a knock on Kyle Kuzma. I think Kuzma's found a nice little niche for him in that area. He is a bucket getter. I know he ended there to see here with 4 points, but he didn't get his buckets in that game, but he got 11 rebounds. And what he does on that bench unit is better than what he does for the starting unit. It's his unit when he takes that. And I think he implements so much more for the bench than he does for the starting five. So I think that change by Vogel to have, yes, Dennis Schroeder back in, but also putting Marcus Morris in, who we saw in the finals, do a great job for him when he started. Wayne, what was your take on Portland?
I kind of enjoyed watching one player in the Portland. Besides Damian Lillard, Gary Trent Jr. is like one of those players I just enjoy to watch. He's so good. He like defensively, he can shoot the free. He's one of the guys you need in the team. He can do everything. He can fill a role, especially in that free. He can guard LeBron James at certain spots and stuff like that. And when his contract's up, he's going to get paid. He's a really, really good player to watch. So you guys should keep an eye on him.
Yeah, no, I'm in agree. I like Gary Trent Jr. and I think I watched him in college at Duke, and that was a nice little team he had there, and he played well that year for them. Surprisingly, he didn't actually get drafted, or when he did, it was quite late on. But I think my takeaway is for Portland, when you look at it, Dame Lillard's going to be Dame Lillard no matter where he is. So that doesn't surprise me. What I think it screams out is that they need CJ McCollum back fit, or they need someone to come take CJ McCollum's points. And if that's done by committee or done by one or two players, they're missing so much without CJ, and Dame can't do it all. And I think actually, I don't think that annoys Dame. I'm a big fan of Lillard, and I think he's got a huge ego, and I think he likes the fact he's on his own. I think he likes putting up these numbers and saying that was done by him, and proving that, I need more people. Not a knock on Dame. I just think that's his type of personality. I think it just showed that Portland, besides Damian Lillard, are quite lacking in the scoring area. So I think before the trade or before any buyouts, they got defenders. Covington, Gary Trent Jr. I like that. That's a nice fit with Lillard when CJ's back fit. I just think they're missing that one more piece. And I think you can throw out the names that we linked with a lot of big teams, Vucic, even Blake Griffin, even Kevin Love. I think someone like that, who you know will get you 18 to 22 a night, that's what you need. So I think they're missing that to actually become any dangers in the West or even in the league. So that's my takeaway from Portland. Wayne, where do you see Portland and then LA finishing up in the West?
See LA maybe finishing second. I don't see them trying to go to first because AD's come back from injury, so they're gonna try to slowly put him into the rotation and stuff. And since they won the championship, I think their focus is going to be a bit different this year. So I'll probably put them up third. I think Jazz might be they'll edge ahead, and then the Clippers might be second, and then Lakers.
What about Portland?
Portland, there's quite a few teams in I feel like they can top 8. I don't feel right now Portland are strong enough without Damian Lillard to make it into the top 8. There's too many teams. I can probably put them 8th at best, if that's the best case scenario. But anything below, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, I think for me, LA, that 3rd or 4th position, because of, as we've said before, LeBron, positions in the conference doesn't bother LeBron. It never has, and it never will. LeBron's issue is, can a team beat him 4 times out of 7? I think he looks at the West and thinks no. So I don't think that bothers LeBron where they finish up. Portland, I think, are an interesting one. And if you think back to the bubble, they only actually made it into the playoffs down to that play-in tournament that they had with the team has gone out of my head now who they had that with it. And I think it was like San Antonio or something like that. But what I think they miss and what I think they're lucky with, is there's a play-in tournament again this year. And anyone from, I think it's like the 6th seed to the 10th seed will be part of this play-in tournament. And I think, again, Dame Lillard on one night will carry Portland into that final couple of positions because he is the best player. Corey, what are you saying?
So is that playing tournament to replace the 10 games they missed and replace the games they missed last year? Is it to make up for that sort of deficit that they're doing?
I'm not sure. I think I'm going to start nicknaming this the Zion Williamson rule. And by that, I mean, they know how much they're going to make more money if Zion's in the playoffs. And they're going to give as many opportunities for Zion to make the playoffs.
It's kind of what they do in football,
and I think
isn't it?
they
With
realise
their wild card picks and stuff like that. Like, you can play crap all season and still get to the playoffs.
And that's why I'm going to call it the Zion Williamson round, because I think they did it in the bubble. They made this ridiculous rule that, any team within 6 games will get an opportunity to go to the bubble, because funny enough, that's how many games New Orleans were away. So I think this is an opportunity just to get Zion into the playoffs and make more money. But I think in the long run, that's perfect for Portland because they're that underdog. Damian Lillard plays like that. And I think he will carry them into the playoffs purely just through that Zion Williamson rule that is now going to be happening. So that's our takeaway from the LA Portland game, or the Lakers Portland game. So I should stop calling them LA. There are apparently 2 teams in LA, not after Corey and JP had done. But so that was our take on there. The final score was 102 LA, 93 Portland. We're going to move on to our second game, which was the LA Clippers at the Milwaukee Bucks. And for those that don't know, JP actually had a Santa-like beard last week during the week. And then when he gets nervous or scared, he starts itching and pulling at it. So it's actually shrunk a little bit. And after tonight, it's going to be shorter when he finds out what's going on later. But because of the Clippers and the Bucks, I gather this beard has got shorter, not down to him actually shaving it. So I just want to give you the score. The breakdown was LA Clippers 100, Milwaukee Bucks 105. JP, short beard. JP, over to you. What's your take?
Well, the beard's shorter because of Paul George, really. Corey's going to touch upon Kawhi Leonard and what the Clippers should have done. But for me, it's what they actually did and why it went wrong in terms of late in the game. Paul George pulled up for like 2 unnecessary 3-pointers when they're taking the lead. They've got like a 2-point lead at this point, and he's just jacking up threes, and it's just playing a half-court setting, get Leonard back into the post game because it was working. And one of the things on defense for the Clippers was taking Zubac out the game late on. I felt like having that big presence in the paint would have affected Giannis. Yeah, fair enough. All right, Zubac's going to pick up like another 2-3 fouls, but at the end of the day, I'd rather put Giannis on a free throw line rather than giving him easy buckets, which he sealed the game with at the end with a dunk, and it just collapsed for the Clippers. And again, this is what we refer to in terms. Well, I picked out that the top 2, Leonard and George, and for this point it was George, and he just went on a solo mission to try and seal the deal, and it completely failed.
Yeah,
What about you?
For me personally, I think there's a couple of things to take away from the game. Is Giannis won the game for the Bucks, but and I know that sounds like a stupid cliche, but Giannis did everything he doesn't normally do. So they took the ball away from Giannis and went, right, well, you go and fill the space. because you're going to bully Ibaka, you're going to bully Zubac. And to be honest, it was like Zubac was playing without his arms. He was so unaggressive on the boards. It was insane. And it was only by one, but Clippers actually out-rebounded the Bucks. And the assists were similar. But the difference was, Tom, you pointed this out on frequent occasions. But as you said, Paul George stopped giving the ball to Kawhi. Kawhi stopped getting in the post, stopped working. And it just kind of went, all right, we're now going for this 3-ball that isn't working. But in terms of the actual game, scoring off the bench, the Clippers were dominant, only slightly dominant on the glass, offensive rebounds. But when someone like Pat Connaughton's picking up 8 boards, you've got to think then you're not aggressive enough. And you're not aggressive enough off the glass. Like you can't be letting players like that pick up 8 boards. And 7 of them were defensive, 1 was offensive. Giving away an offensive foul to him when you've got rebounders such as George, Kawhi, Zubac, Ibaka, even Batum, like you've got a strong rebounding team. And for me, they just weren't aggressive enough on the offensive boards. They stopped playing through Kawhi and to be honest, I think the game plan from the Bucks was immense. They went, right, Giannis, we want you to get in the paint. We want you to hit backdoor cuts. And we just want you around the rim. And he dropped 36 and 14 boards. So he carried them to the dub.
The problem with the rebounds were, as we saw late into the fourth quarter, whether they gave the ball to Kawhi in the post or, they're jacking up a 3-pointer, no one's in the paint. It's just 5 wide for some reason. And, whether they gave it to Kawhi in the post and then, all right, everyone's space out, no one's looking for that second ball option or opportunity. Yeah. And no one.
Their spacing is incredible. When they break down the court, you see 5 players fill positions extremely quickly and very well, but they kind of play this, we're an outside team, where they were so dominant inside with Kawhi posting up. Even when George was in the paint and he was posting up, they were so dominant, but they refused to accept what was working. And it was a strange game plan. And I'd just say the Bucks just pulled off their game plan better, to be honest.
I agree. And I do have blame on Paul George. And I've said it all week, and to Corey chatting about Kawhi in the post, I think is such a dangerous weapon, because not only he can get his own shot, I think one play he backed DJ Augustine over, hit a shot over him. The next play they got Pat Connaughton on him, so he backed him 1-2 and kicked and found the Morris twin in the corner, and he hit the 3, and it was like, oh, that works. Why are they stop? And they went away from that. I lay blame on Ty Lue, the Clippers coach. And my reason for that is when he took over, Paul George came out and said he didn't like Doc Rivers because Doc Rivers wanted to make Paul George Ray Allen in coming off screens and pulling up. Paul George, that is your game. You're not a very good pick and roll player. And Wayne, as a point guard, will tell you this. And this is the problem, because coaches tell you this, but you've got to actually be able to do both options. Wayne, when you come off a pick and roll at the top, what are you told you have to always do? Look to score.
Yeah. Look to score, but my game is to pass first. But
brilliant.
I will 100% score on you.
And that's the thing. It's to look to score, and then if not, make the pass. When Paul George was on that pick and roll, which he ran himself, it was always going to shoot. So when it isn't working, all the Bucks did was, that's fine, you can keep shooting. You're not going to dish it off. You're going to try and beat us 1-5. And Ty Lue didn't call a timeout. He didn't input certain people. I think there was a couple of things he did that made me sort of question him. Serge Ibaka got them back in the game in the third quarter. He came out of 8 minutes of the fourth, and then the last 8 or so minutes. And he also, when they were up a couple of points. He took out Pat Bev, who I'm not a massive fan of, but they took Pat Bev out, one of their best defenders, for Lou Will, who isn't a defender. So you're opening yourself up for Giannis to take the game away. And I just think, like you guys have just said, I think the Clippers just looked lost more than anything. And I'm interested to see, and I'll ask you guys, sort of, Corey and JP, who do you guys see as that team? Who is the leader in that team, Kawhi or Paul George? Corey?
It has to be Kawhi. It shouldn't be anyone else. And I know it sounds really stupid, but in the long run, your legacy and who you are as a player is based on how much you win. And Kawhi is a winner. Paul George hasn't had that taste yet. So he's got to learn off of Kawhi. And I feel like Clippers, that they play such a slow ball game that they've become almost hard to watch. Like the Bucks are a really interesting team to watch. But as a 205-point game, it was painful. And it just needed that Kawhi showstopper. But he dropped 25, but on a day like that, less than 30 is not good enough for your team, really. Like,
I agree, Wayne. Before going to you, Wayne, I'm just going to hear JP. JP, Kawhi or Paul George? Who's the leader in that team?
Well, from the looks of Sunday, it was Paul George, but as Corey picked up on, it should be Kawhi. Based just off experience alone. He's been there and done that, and he knows what it takes, especially with a team that on paper were weaker than the Clippers, in the form of Toronto, and he carried them there. So maybe there's some sort of conflict there between power control and power player control. I'm not too sure, but I'm in agreement with Corey, and it should be Kawhi's team.
Yeah, I agree. Wayne, what's your point on this?
Well, I agree. It should be Kawhi Leonard just in terms of experience, and I feel like Paul George he hasn't done enough for him to be opening up his mouth talking about him being the leader and stuff like that, or him thinking he's the leader. But I feel like it's a bit unfair you questioning Ty Lue. He made some bad changes, but they've got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Lou Williams. Win the game. You've got these three great scorers. And win the game. Like, it doesn't matter who it is, you just got to win it. Paul George, he had a stinker, late in the fourth quarter. But the thing is, like, at least he's trying. It's just like there's something missing in the team. It's like they haven't got the winning intangibles. I think Kawhi does, but they haven't got the winning mentality that they need. I think they think they're just much better. They're bigger stars than they actually are, or they're bigger stars, but they haven't proven the winning side of being a star.
The problem is we've always regarded Kawhi and Paul George as two-way players, but I'm yet to see that this year in terms of the defensive side, especially stopping someone like Giannis. I would have thought that Paul George would have picked him up a lot more. Maybe despite the mismatch in height and size, Paul George is known for his defensive IQ as well, and we're not seeing that much of him from the defensive side.
You've got to force them to shoot, and they didn't. But then again, that a lot of that comes from the way the Bucks' game plan was from the beginning. Whereas most teams that defend well against Giannis put up a wall, and they go, "All right, this is the 3-point line. You are free until that point, and then you're not getting near the rim." But that's based on him carrying the ball and him bringing the ball up the court for most of the game. Whereas they just flipped it on its head and they went, "All right, Giannis, you're just going to be someone else's problem." So I think when the game's like that, when someone is bringing the ball, it's easy for a good defender like George, like Kawhi, to pick him up from the arc onwards. But when he's not got the ball and he's looking to go into the low post, then it only makes sense to Zubac or Ibaka go onto him, because that's how you defend. Like, it only makes sense. You're not going to put your strongest guards, defensive guards, in the low post against a 7-footer. So yeah, I think it was the game plan from the Bucks that just did it for me. That they were just, in terms of IQ and game plan and execution, they were just stronger.
Yeah, but close game, and you do the top 10 players and 2 of the top 5 talents in the league. If it's a close game like that, this is exactly when you need those talents and these top 10 players to come. And they got beaten by Giannis. Giannis can't even make a 3-pointer. I mean, like Paul George and Kawhi, they've got so much arsenal they got so much arsenal. They can kill you in so many different ways. You know what Giannis is going to do. You know he's just going to go in and drive, kick or score. That's it. But with Paul George, they can do so much more. I don't understand why they just couldn't do it.
I think that game as well was 1 or 2 decisions or 1 or 2 made shots. I know that sounds really stupid, but it was the difference being if Paul George had come off the screen and hit one of those threes, we could be sitting here talking about how Clippers went on strong from the 3rd to the 4th and won by 10. But we're not. We're sitting here discussing why they lost, and it could have been a completely different game. But
yeah, I agree.
It's the fine margins, and they just didn't get it right on the day.
I agree, and there's a couple of things I just want to add on. There's and again from a coach's point of view, I think if I'm a team against Giannis and I've not seen it much, I would, especially on Sunday, I think Milwaukee just weren't shooting the ball well anyway. I agree, it was a poor game actually. It wasn't like one team outdid them. I just think both teams weren't playing well. I think when Milwaukee aren't shooting well, I would like to see a zone more and told Giannis, when you do get into the key, there's two people there that you're just going to have to get over. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a play Milwaukee have run a couple of days now where I saw them do it against New Orleans and I saw them do it against Clippers a couple of times. They empty out one side, completely empty out. And what they actually do, it's very similar to a flex play. Giannis sets a cross screen for the corner man to get across to the other. People turn their heads, and then he sets a top screen for Chris Middleton, pick and right at the top. And when Middleton's playing well, you don't want to leave Middleton open for that shot. And they actually move the ball well. And I like the fact they're taking the ball out of Giannis's hands. I'm a fan of that. I like watching Milwaukee when they do that. Just quickly, I'm going to come around to you. Where do you see Milwaukee ending up in their conference, and where do you see Clippers ending up in their conference? JP, over to you.
I think we've touched on the Bucks in a previous episode in terms of where they're going to finish. It is going to be top 5, but as we mentioned before, playing a systematic team, they're going to have trouble again, like they did with the Heat last year. So, in a half-court phase, I put my money on a systematic team over Giannis and the Bucks in the playoffs.
What about the Clippers? Where do you see Clippers ending up in the West?
The West has become so competitive. Everyone used to bang on about how when LeBron was in the East, that the West was, harder and more competitive, and he should go there. But ever since LeBron's been in LA, the West has become stronger and stronger, and we're seeing that obviously in the Utah Jazz, the Nuggets. These are still dominant teams, but they're even more dominant this year. And I think it's going to be hard for the Clippers when they come up a team like the Nuggets, like they did last year. It might come to that point where they're 3-1 up. But I don't see them. I honestly don't see them getting to the final of the conference finals. So I have them finishing in the second round.
Wayne, what about you? Where do you see them? Clippers or Bucks?
I feel like the Clippers, they're gonna second seeds. Right now, the Suns are purifying the second seed, but I don't see them maintaining it there. But in terms of playoff predictions, I don't see them. They're gonna make it to the Western Conference Finals. I feel the Clippers. I feel that they're gonna figure it out. Ty Lue's an experienced coach in the postseason, so they're gonna figure that side out. I don't see them beating LeBron James if AD is healthy. So, and the Bucks, again, second seed. I don't see them going past the second round.
Yes, Corey, what about you?
For me, it's the same for both teams. Third seed, second round. Don't see anything more from either.
See, I'm not too far off. I think both are the second seed in their conference. I think if they don't make their conference finals, that both teams will be not exploded, but imploded. I think players will be put off and there'll be question marks. So it'll be sort of interesting to see. So there's our review of last week. We're not going to do a review or preview for next week, as we have got sort of some exciting news going forward with the All-Star. We've got a bonus episode on Friday with a couple of friends, some good players, some not so. We won't say who, we'll just leave it at that. And then what we're also going to do is, as it is All-Star weekend, we are going to, on Friday, vote for Team LeBron or Team Durant to win. So that gives you an opportunity to win 1 point, boys. We've also going to vote on the Steals Challenge, the 3-point challenge, and the dunk contest. So out of Sunday alone, you have 4 opportunities to get a point. Okay, so maximum you're going to get from 4. There is another opportunity, which I'll explain later on. So far, there is an opportunity for 4. And on Friday, with the boys, we're going to make our decisions there. So get prepping, get looking. So into one of our subjects today and topics we're looking at today, we are going to give you our greatest or top 5 all-time players, okay? And this is a difficult one, and I'm wary with this, and I do a lot of my prep on a Sunday chatting to my brother, okay? And he's as big of a basketball fan as us, probably bigger. He loves talking basketball. And I texted him and said, what's your top 5? And he gave me his 5, which was relatively similar to mine, bar one player. And the thing we sort of spoke about was it's hard to do this without causing an argument. But we need to realise this is not an argument. This is our opinion on top five. And we all have, these players are in that debate. It's what we see. We're not going to sit here and go, no, that's ridiculous. Like these guys are in that debate. No matter what, I'm sure all four of us have put players that are in the top 10, top 20 to ever play the game. So it's interesting to see our point of view on it. The way we're going to do it, we're going to go all of our number five, and then we'll do all of our number four. So for me, I'm going to kick us off with my number five pick is the legend Larry Bird. I think what happened in the 80s is why I'm going with Larry Bird and what he did. And I think, unfortunately, injuries ruined his game. But if you go back and watch what he was doing, I think my favourite ever game of Larry Bird is against, I think, Atlanta. The Atlanta bench starts celebrating and going crazy every time he touches the ball because he's doing something crazy. So for my number five position is Larry Legend, Larry Bird. JP, who is your number five on your list?
Number five on my list. Well, I base my list based on, to me, who's revolutionised the game. That's how you make a statement in the game. And that's how you get idolised, really, by changing the face of it. And then for me, five was a tough one, but I've gone for Steph Curry. Just all-out shooter, perhaps change the face of the game for how shooting is today. We see a lot of people come out like Luka, Trae Young, try to emulate his game and try to mirror it. I think there's no question we can all agree that he's changed the face of the offensive side of the basketball in the past decade.
I think that's a great shout. I love Steph. I watched Steph, and if someone said to me who changed one of my top players to change the game, Steph's in that argument. I think that's a great point. Corey, I'm going to come down to you. Who's your number five?
So I actually did a starting five for mine. So I'm going to go based on position, playing at the centre. And I went for Bill Russell. So he's saying about careers, what I said earlier about basketball's about winning. I did actually write down Kareem earlier, and then I saw a little quote from an interview, and someone asked Kareem if he's the best centre ever. And his answer was, the game's all about winning, and the game is about how many rings you have on your finger. And Bill Russell has 11 of them. Doesn't even have enough fingers for his rings. So based on that alone, I've gone with him as my top five. And also the fact that he was so unbelievably dominant at what he did. 22 and a half boards a game. His points average wasn't as good. He was 15 points, but does it really matter when you're averaging 22 and a half rebounds a game? How important are you for your team if that's happening? So he's gone for my number five.
I loved Bill Russell, and I'm going to go into him later on. I think that's a great point and deserves to be in there. Down to you, Wayne. Who's your fifth pick? Or fifth player, sorry.
Actually, I didn't think anyone would pick Bill Russell. I have Bill Russell as my number five. Same as what Corey said, you can't beat him in terms of winning. He's the best winner in basketball history. 11 was beat 6.
And everyone talks about Wilt Chamberlain's dominance. Again, this is another stat that I managed to find earlier. 9 of Bill Russell's rings came during the Wilt Chamberlain period, which just goes to show how good he actually is.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm going to go into more later on about Bill, but what a player, what a guy. I'm going to kick us off again for my number 4. I talk a lot about history of basketball, and I can't talk basketball with Larry Bird without mentioning Magic Johnson. So Magic Johnson's my number 4. In terms of revolutionising the game, what he did as a big guy playing at the point guard position, where you have point guards coming out in years after, like Isaiah Thomas, who are small, stereotypical point guards. Magic Johnson did that. And my favourite Magic moment, okay, and it's not the highlights, it's not the no-look passes, it's not the backing down people from the halfway line, dribble like he did. It's his rookie year in as a youngster. Kareem went down injured. He turned around to Pat Riley at the time, who was their coach, and said, I'll play centre. So rookie out of position, play centre, and they go on and win it. So for me, what he did in his rookie year championship to win it as the rookie playing out of position. That's why Magic is my number 4 in my list. Wayne, I'm going to come to you. Who's your 4?
Magic. Magic my number 4 for the exact same reason. For the exact same reason he brought, and he bought Showtime Lakers. Even now, you think of Lakers, what do? They always refer back to the Showtime Lakers when Magic was running it. He made basketball look fun. I feel like he's one of the first players who made basketball look very fun to play.
Yeah, definitely made it look fun. Corey, go to you then. Who's in your 4 position?
So I've gone for Magic Johnson at guard. I know I said I was doing it by position, but I've gone for Magic Johnson at guard. His career averages were insane as well. 19.5 points, 11.2 assists, and 7.2 rebounds for a guy that's playing guard. Yeah, fair enough. He was 6'9", but he was someone who passed the ball like a magician and ran as if he was 6'2", but did it all whilst being so much bigger than his position. And yeah, talk about revolutionising and stuff like that. He was one of them guys. Just someone you looked at and went, he's a reason to like basketball.
Yeah, let's say that's 3 out of 3 so far. JP, over to you.
I'm not being a sheep or anything, but I've got the same. You've all touched on him, how he's revolutionised the game, and again, that's why he's part of my top 5, because you look at what he did at the point for his size and stature, going coast to coast all the time, and predominantly his IQ as well. He was more often than not a facilitator rather than a scorer. And again, obviously, if we're comparing it to the modern day game, it's changed on how a point guard is looked at, and I think. What he was doing in that rivalry against Larry Bird, the two of the top to do it. I think it was a great narrative for basketball, and he's going to be an icon for everyone to idolise forever.
And we can't forget the fact he's got 5 rings as well.
Yeah. See, unfortunately, and I know I said I won't be negative on any of these picks. My only caveat to Magic Johnson, okay, and is where I love Magic, and he is my 4th solid pick. The reason I don't put him, and I can't see him ever going higher than that in my list, is all of those rings came with Kareem, and that's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. No player has won it solely on their own, but it just in the back of my head, because I know Kareem might come up in some people's picks, and then when you say 2 of the greatest always, and they won it together, that's just my point on that. I'm not going to go first on this for our 3rd pick. I'm going to go straight to Corey. Who did you have for your 3rd?
Charles Barkley, a power forward. Again, a bit different, but he, again, it kind of contradicts what I said about rings or about winning. He's a guy that his career ended somehow without a ring. Like, the guy was immense. He was so good. And here he's like, he was averaging 22. This is his whole career. Obviously, it tailed off towards the end, but 22.1 points, 11.7 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 54% on shooting. And his shooting stats actually dipped because in his last couple of years, he decided that he was going to take threes. And I think I read a stat earlier, he was 34th in the last 2 seasons on 3 points attempted, only shooting 26%. So he tried adapting his game, didn't work. But if you take those 2 years of 3-point shooting out, and his shooting percentage would be way over 60%. He was so effective on the game, and he was great to watch. But so, the point is, he didn't have any rings.
I think to back up that last point on his threes, Chuck went. It's not ring chasing, but he went and joined Houston and joined Hakeem Olajuwon. There isn't space for Chuck in the paint when there's Hakeem Olajuwon about. I think Chuck is unfortunately known now as a joke, a bit of a jokester and a prank. But when you go back and have a look at his game, what a player. I think when you have players like Michael Jordan, John Stockton, Magic, who refer to Chuck as a hell of a player and probably put Chuck in one of their top 10 players, top 5 players, then you know that's a serious player. So I think it's worth a shout. It's a very good pick. JP, who's in your 3rd place?
The one to make my top 3 is Shaquille O'Neal. Again, we talk about, well, my stance on it is revolutionising the game. And, I've talked about how people are trying to emulate Steph's offensive version and Trae Young and Luka are trying to mirror that. You're never going to find anyone like Shaq. He was the one to dominate, the bigs. and the way that the modern game's changing, you're never going to see that ever again. And I touch upon what happened when I mentioned him as someone to look out for, just to watch in everyday life. Just his life story in general as well, how he's a businessman now, and he's trying to get his kids involved into basketball. I think that's what I've looked at as well, in terms of not just on the floor but socially. Again, that's a big factor for me, and he's making a change to the society that he lives in. And with Shaq, he got his story when he comes from an army base family. He grew up in Germany as well. And then, to get like a scholarship at the age of like 14, 15 to LSU, it's written in the stars for him in that way. And he was destined to be one of the best to ever do it in the NBA.
Yeah, it's a good pick. And I think Shaq's one of those players that, again, it gets remembered for the wrong reasons in terms of the tail end of his career. But that, from the Magic and the LA and the Miami days, one of the most dominant players to ever touch a basketball court, and it's a joke. And I also think the reason I also think he doesn't get put higher, he's very humble on other players around him. You always hear him go, "Yeah, but I won a ring." But when you mention Tim Duncan, Akeem Olajuwon, Kareem, when it's to talk about the best centers, he never puts himself there because he understands what a game was. So I think he's very humble and actually could sell himself a bit more, other than just him shouting at Chuck, "I've got a ring." Wayne, who is your third? Who comes third in your list?
Shaq would have been my third, but he just about missed it because I thought I got Kareem as my third. The guy scored 38,000 points. Like the best scorer. He's like at least the best scorer in history. No one can score better than him, but he's got the most points. He won a ring with the Bucks before he even got to the Lakers with Magic, and he ended up with 6 rings, which is good. Like he's got the most unstoppable move in basketball. I feel like everyone knows that's the most unstoppable hook, but it's not being used in NBA right now, and it's kind of like it's quite baffling. So it's like you think, what, I should try out this move, I should perfect it, because if he can score 38,000 points, then he must be onto something. But it's one of those moves.
The only people I really see try it are actually the Lopez brothers. The only people that I really see use it effectively are the Lopez brothers. It's not a used move, is it?
Which is strange, because I again watched a lot of documentaries and a lot of interviews, and I listened to one of the Knuckleheads podcast, which is to Darius Mill and Quinton Richardson, 2 ex-players, and they had Chris Webber on there, and he said when he got older in the league, he realised how effective the sky hook was. He said he then put it into his game, and he said most of his points in the back end of his career was a sky hook, and he said it baffles him why people don't do it early enough in their career. It's a strange one, and I agree, as I said, Kareem to have the most points, yes, I get it. It makes sense. As I said at the beginning, I spoke to this about my brother, and my brother had the same 5 I did, 4 of the 5 I did, and he had Kareem in there. I didn't. I put Bill Russell in at my 3, and I know Corey and Wayne touched on the rings and that. The reason Bill Russell goes into mine is for the social reasons as well. What he did coming into the league, which was predominantly white, knowing that he was a larger than life person because of his size. And what he did coming into a majority white league and a majority white city in Boston, and putting that aside and taking that team to the next level and winning as many championships as he did, being there, being that voice of reason. And actually, unfortunately, stats weren't kept as well back then. But I bet if they were, the numbers of Bill Russell would go through the roof. And he won a ridiculous MVP race that saw, I think that year Wilt averaged 40 or 50 points and still didn't even get in, still didn't win the MVP. And I think that says volumes for Bill Russell. I also think being the first black coach in the NBA speaks volumes for this guy. Red Auerbach, who's one of the greatest coaches ever to be part of NBA, passed the Boston dynasty onto Bill Russell. Not only he also was a coach that year. Okay, he player coach at that point, and that's why for me, Bill Russell was my number 3 pick. It was between him or Kareem to go in at 3, and Bill Russell comes in there for what he's done overall for the game, and then also to have the Finals MVP trophy named after him. I think sums it up massively. I'm going to jump ahead to my number 2, which I think these 2 picks are going to be similar most out. I'm going to go with the man I got on today, LeBron James. I said earlier to Corey, I find it hard to not put LeBron at number 1 because to me, from my basketball watching, LeBron's been the greatest player. But I also feel hard done by. I feel I can't put any player who's currently playing the game in at number 1. I think hindsight and legacy after the game might move him up, in my opinion. But LeBron James is number 2 for me. JP, over to you.
This was a hard one, really, in terms of, as you've mentioned, the way that you kind of compare the past and present. But the reason I've gone for this guy at 2 is because, to me, I feel like maybe if I'd watched him more, or maybe if I had actually got to witness his game like live, it might have been different. But MJ for me is my number 2. We talk about someone who's revolutionized basketball. He's not only done that, but he revolutionized a whole culture of fashion. His presence on the court and off the court is always there, and it will remain to be there in terms of his sneakers and trainers. But then I couldn't put him at 1 because during his time of playing, as most of us have watched, the documentary on Netflix, he wasn't very political. He didn't use his platform that well at the time, especially still in a time where, there was a load of racial segregation within America. I felt like he could have had a major playing part in that and helping society as a whole come together. But maybe in his eyes, he thought he was doing his job. He was trying to get people to unite through basketball. I can't argue of how good a player he is, but just for some reason, even though this is a top 5 and it's top 5 basketballers, what he's done off the court to me isn't up there to be number 1, unfortunately.
Interesting. Wayne, I'm left for you. Who's your number 2?
Me, I'm literally tied in the middle. Like LeBron is my goal, I feel, but I've got to put LeBron at number 2. LeBron and what he does socially and politically is phenomenal. Is one of the most versatile players I feel that's ever touched the floor. He's very athletic. He can finish better than anyone else in the game around the rim when he's going full head of steam. And his IQ level is through the roof. I think it's either second to Magic or top to Magic. Like he's just a great passer and he's a great teammate as well. Like I feel like his leadership and his team, his team. I don't know what the word is, camaraderie or something like that. It's so
Marjorie, yeah. He revolutionized.
JP's just hungry, and he's just thinking about a bag of rebels.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, but and get the best out of them at all times. Whereas I feel like other people, I feel like other players in my top 5, they haven't done that as well as LeBron could do that. That's why it's my number 2.
No, I get that, and LeBron, he's my number 2 for a reason. For me, he's my GOAT. I agree with you. And I'll go into, and I imagine you and me have got a similar number 1. Corey, who's your number 2?
Touching on what JP said, but with less stuttering, I have to go for Michael Jordan for number 2. I know we're talking a lot about on and off, and we're contradicting ourselves quite a lot because I think the greatest ever basketball player, what you do socially shouldn't have an effect on it. So you shouldn't be judged on your ability by the fact of you chose not to have a social impact. But at the same time, I do feel like you need to look at it to be the greatest of anything. So he's at my number 2. There's no denying what he did. he changed the game completely. Everyone just went, wow. And he had his haters. And it's the same with LeBron. And I think when you're that good, for someone to sit there and slate you, despite you clearly being the best, it says a lot. But for me, I feel like he was more about himself than, I feel like he won those 6 rings for himself, not for anyone else. Whereas I feel like LeBron going back to Cleveland was a huge statement. And for him to go and get a ring there, for me, that pushes Michael Jordan into second. And I know I'm jumping the gun here and leading on to my number 1, but I think it flows in nicely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll put LeBron at number 1. The fact of it's our generation. Like, I wasn't born when Michael Jordan was doing what he was doing. It doesn't change how good he was, but I've got the first sort of perspective of what LeBron's doing now. And then when you take the social aspects of things and what he's doing for the schools where he's from and what he's doing for his kids, and he's always been married. It's only ever been his wife. And as a role model going forward for any sport, it's LeBron. And not only do I rate him as the best basketball player ever, I probably put him up there as the greatest sportsman of our generation as well. If you're between the ages of 15 to 30, I think it's hard to argue that there's a greater sportsman that's about the politics. The Lewis Hamilton sort of vibe, it's about the politics, cares about other people, but he's the best at what he does. And I think that's so important. So, yeah.
I'm going to go straight over to JP because from what you said, I can imagine JP, LeBron's your number 1.
Yeah, I totally agree with Corey and what he's saying. But then just to highlight more on the court as well, then, comparing Jordan's time to LeBron's, it was debated that Jordan at his disposal had, the top 2 players in the game at that time in terms of Dennis Rodman as one of the best defensive stoppers to ever play the game, and Scottie Pippen. Now, if you look at LeBron, I'm sorry, but in terms of my opinion, I think that he's not had that at his disposal wherever he's been. Yes, he had Bosh and he had Wade, but in terms of them two being the best within the NBA at that time, there were many players that competed at that level compared to what Jordan was, and I think the level of competition throughout the years has always got stronger and stronger. And I think that LeBron doing it at Miami, at Cleveland, at LA, he's done it wherever he's been basically. And how can you argue with that? How can you argue with someone that wherever he goes, it touches to gold? What Corey said about him socially, with the education aspect of society, he's trying to improve, the next generation. And as he mentioned as well, off court he's the GOAT, and to me on the court he's the GOAT. So I didn't see it as much of a debate for that.
Oh, nice. Wayne, give me your number 1 then, please.
My number 1 is Rajon Rondo because
you're not even joking, are you?
My number 1 is Jordan, and like one over LeBron is just that killer mentality. Like when you see Jordan, you see like this cold-blooded assassin who's gonna do anything necessary just to win. Like he's got that winner's mentality, and I feel LeBron may have it, but he doesn't show it as much. Where Jordan, he showed it in anything he touches. Like I'm a competitive person, so I know what it feels like just to always want to win, no matter what the cost is. And because of that, he will throw his teammates under the bus. That doesn't go great leadership, but at the end of the day, that's still leadership. It's just depending how other people deal with it. If you hear what other people say who played against Jordan and who watched Jordan, what they all say, yeah, this man is like the greatest ever. Like Larry Bird said it, Magic Johnson said it. They actually played against him in USA, Team USA, and he beat the brakes off them, and they were like, oof. They're all like, okay, nah, he's definitely the best player ever, right? And he stopped so many great players from winning a ring. You mentioned Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley would have won a ring if Michael Jordan wasn't playing. If Michael Jordan wasn't playing, Hakeem Olajuwon only won the ring because Michael Jordan took a sabbatical when he stopped playing basketball. And if he didn't do that, we could be speaking Michael Jordan having 8 rings right now. And yeah, maybe like towards the end of his career, he started, looking like an old man, but he's still the greatest ever, I feel.
For me, there's a couple of points on MJ that I need to say. He won his first ring after 7 years, right, in the league. LeBron in his 7th year was eliminated in the semi-finals. I don't want to compare errors, and that's the last time I'm going to do that. But I think if Michael doesn't take the 2-year hiatus or the year hiatus properly and then come back mid-season, and if Michael plays the 99 season, I think Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls win every in the 90s. And it's because of Michael Jordan. He is there were teams unable to beat him. And I think what speaks volumes about Michael Jordan is not only did he win the championship and dominate playoffs, he was number 1 seed every year coming out of the East that he was in that 90s time. When he was the guy in the league, every year they were number 1 seed. So for me, what MJ did and that mentality and changing the game and the way he scored the ball was unreal. And it's hard to give your number 1 without trying to diss or disprove the number 2 guy. But my way, I've seen a lot of people sort of say this, and I'm not taking credit for it, but one thing I stand by with this argument of LeBron and MJ is when all said and done, LeBron is going to have the greatest career of all time in the NBA with points, assists, years played. But for the greatest player is Michael Jordan. And I think that's when the argument comes. Greatest career, which involves the social justice side, what he does outside of the game, in the game, is LeBron. But what in terms of the greatest player, I think that's what MJ takes at. But it's interesting to sort of see all of our top 5s, JP.
Can I just debate then and throw out the question, if LeBron was to get the same amount of rings as Jordan, would that change your mind?
As I said at the beginning, I think it would, because I also think I struggle to put someone who's still playing in at number 1. And that's my point in that. I also, my caveat to asterisk next to Michael's name is I used to be a massive Pippen fan. I'm a huge Dennis Rodman fan because the rebounding is unbelievable and I love rebounds, but not as much as Corey. But
my favourite part of the game. It really is. I love it. A put back dunk. That's it. That's me happy for the day.
I didn't even think you on about in terms of basketball, but we'll stick to basketball.
Yeah, I wasn't either, JP. We'll go with that. But my thing with Michael is, yes, he had Rodman and Pippen, but LeBron has never had an all-time great coach. And you look at it, he had Mike Brown in Cleveland, who's now the assistant with the Warriors, done a great job there as assistant, but as a head coach, he didn't do it. He then went to Eric Spoelstra, who at the time was young. I think he's a great coach now, but was young. He wasn't great then. He then had David Blatt in Cleveland. Exactly, David Blatt. He then had Ty Lue, who I don't think actually coached that team. I think that team was LeBron's team, but Ty Lue was the figurehead. And then to go into having Luke Walton at LA, and then Frank Vogel. I like Frank Vogel, but he's still not great, unlike a Phil Jackson. So again, that's my asterisk on the MJ LeBron debate. So that's, like I said, interesting. Our top 5 are very similar. I've made notes of them, and actually our reasons were very well put together why we put them there. So it's interesting to see that. And there are players that we've definitely missed that other people will go, no, they've got to be in there. And I can imagine there are Kobe fans saying, where is Kobe? I get that. That's your opinion, our opinion. That's why it's interesting. So moving into our last segment of today, and this has sort of been a drawn out aspect of the week. Because we filmed this on a Wednesday, and even though Watford game is still on and they're 1-0 up, which is amazing, at home to Wickham, go on the boys. We film on a Wednesday, and then the All-Star game is Sunday, but LeBron and Kevin Durant pick their teams on Thursday night. So when we come to voting for who we think's going to win, we can't do that until they come out with it. So we've decided to team up, and we've got the future WWE Tag Team Champions of myself and Corey. There is a belt somewhere.
We've got the belts, it doesn't matter.
And then we've got the bearded woman and the baby Marshawn Lynch as one team. or Auntie Wayne, as there is again a picture knocking about, as another team. And on Monday night, to decide who was Team LeBron, who would get the first pick, and then who was Team Durant to get the second pick, we all picked a team on Monday night. I went with Philadelphia. I think Wayne went Denver. Corey went Dallas. JP, you went Brooklyn.
Yes.
And we decided that the team that won, if the team that won or the team that won by the most, whoever picked them, they would get the number one pick. That was the Philadelphia 76ers, which gave myself and Corey the number one pick, which is why I'm rocking the Team LeBron jersey, or the Team USA LeBron jersey. Just a little note on this. As Kevin Durant will not be playing, he's still taking on the captain mantle tomorrow when he picks his team. However, they've upgraded Jason Tatum as a starter, and they've brought Domantas Sabonis in as a bench or reserve player. What I've done, I'm not sure how the league are going to do this, but for me, and to make it easier for us, you will be Team Durant. However, Giannis, as the second highest vote getter in the East, will be your player captain. So we're technically doing Team LeBron versus Team Giannis. On the group, guys, is the pictures of the starters and then the reserve team. What we're going to do, it will be first pick, and we have to get rid of the starters first before we even touch the reserve picks, okay? So the starters must go. Again, because we are future WWE Tag Team Champions, there's a lot of prep and plan that goes into us. And we had a bit of a conversation beforehand, prepping out what we're going to do. So to kick us off, I'm going to tag in my partner, Corey, who is our Team LeBron number one pick.
So for the 2021 All-Star, our first pick is Steph Curry.
Well, pick. What a scorer. Imagine LeBron and Steph on one team. Wow, you get to see it because of the Tag Team Champions. JP and Wayne, I believe, JP, you've got the pleasure of giving us your first pick.
We've got a game plan. Obviously, not going to mention what it is, but I threw this name straight out there, and I think Wayne agreed with me in the end, so we're going to go for Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, do you know what? Again, with our preparation, we sort of had a guess at what you would go, and funny enough, you kind of played into our hands. We didn't go that way, but it sort of helped us out naturally. So you've gone with Kyrie Irving, a past All-Star game winner, MVP winner. For me and Corey, our second pick is over to me. We are going to take the big man, Joel Embiid. So we've now got LeBron, Steph, and Joel. Should we just call it there, guys? Because I'm sure we've won.
You got us to go him if you want. Don't worry.
I'll let Wayne take the next pick.
Wayne and JP. Wayne, over to you.
Oh, as you said, we've got a game plan.
Is it to lose?
Stick to the game plan. And our starter is going to be Bradley Beal.
Okay, right.
So just before Corey goes, Bradley Beal was going to be one of ours. We weren't sure if you guys were going to touch Bradley Beal, but that's fair. Corey, over to you, because I think you know who we both want on this one.
In response to your pick, we have chosen Jason Tatum.
Yes, we are surrounding LeBron with scorers. We've got the big man and we have got scorers. All right, we're playing this game. So just to recap, actually, no, we're now going to JP for your pick.
Talking about shooters, and he's been mentioned in many episodes, we're going to go for another guard in Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
We knew it.
You knew it because we live in your head.
See, this is where, so just to recap how the teams are so far, and we are so happy it's gone this way when we break this down.
I said, I don't want Luka.
Yeah, that was the conversation, because we don't want Luka because LeBron James is the better version of Luka Doncic. All right. So we've
Just
got
quicker,
LeBron.
more athletic, stronger, better, rings. you know how it kind of goes.
It's gonna be a shame when Giannis drops about 50. So,
but going on to your point there, JP, me and Corey were like, we've got LeBron who's going to get his points. We've got Steph who can shoot from anywhere. We've got Jason Tatum, who I think is a sleeper for MVP in this game. We're going to go with the claw, the defensive stopper, Kawhi Leonard, which leaves us to your final pick of your final starter.
Has to be the Joker.
The Joker. So just to recap your team LeBron, captain LeBron James, Steph. Oh, hang on, I've messed this up a little bit. Steph.
One job.
Mate, it's hard work, I'm not gonna lie. Steph.
We've got Steph, Embiid, Tatum, and Kawhi.
Thank you, Corey. And then JP and Wayne's team, you have got Giannis, Luka, Bradley Beal, Kyrie Irving, and Nikola Jokic. Okay, so there are starters. I'll put them up on the page. And we're now moving on to our bench. And again, over to Corey for our first pick of the bench. And this is unanimous.
There's no way you guys are going to be upset at this, surely. Zion Williamson.
Yeah.
Mr. Franchise himself.
I've got it coming.
Okay. Wayne or JP, who's taking your pick here?
JP is.
We're going with the sharpshooter himself, James Harden.
That's fine. We knew that one was coming.
I've been looking at this bench for the whole episode. I've had my phone out, and I'm like, apart from Zion and James Harden, I'm kind of struggling. So I might leave it up to Wayne from now on.
So just to say,
Zion, worked. We knew what would happen.
Well, so, in the game that we're picking.
So just to let you know, this is where it gets a bit harder, and I'm also delaying a little bit just to wait for Corey to look at his phone. But here we did have you guys picking James Harden, and for that we also preempted what we were going to do. But I just want to double check. We are going with the logo Damian Lillard with our team.
That's good, because I was going to pick him. Since you've done that, you've given me opportunity, or given us opportunity, none other than Paul George. And then
I am so happy you've done that, because again, you've played into us. Corey, over to you.
Ben Simmons. I said that like hopefully is that one we're going for. We've got it written down. Yeah. I've got what you're going to pick, and then I've got what we're picking written down. Right. I live in your head. Rent free.
So we've gone Ben Simmons. We've gone Ben Simmons for this reason. We've currently got so many points, but we need someone to defend. So we've got the claw, and we've got. I think we'll win the defensive player of the year this year, Ben Simmons. So JP, Wayne, who are you going with?
The way that Corey said Ben Simmons, he is scared. He's fully scared.
I'm not worried.
The way you said otherwise.
You could give me Vince Carter right now and we would still win this.
Wayne, what are you saying?
Give me Adonis Haslam as well. I don't care. Put him on my bench. I don't need him.
Let me go D-Book, please.
D-Book. Gone for Devin.
Funny that, because I've literally just messaged Wayne saying D-Book ? See, you know,
so
great one.
Which is fine because you've gone for Devin Booker, which we also imagined you were going to do. We're going to take the best player in the best team in the league right now, Donovan Mitchell. We see your D-Book and we raise your Donovan Mitchell.
I'm getting lost here. This just isn't the game plan we were going for.
Unfortunately, I think it is, but I've done it differently to you. This is the game plan we had for the bench, all right, knocking about. But I feel like we might have got our wires crossed. However, the thing about the WWE Tag Team Champions, things might go wrong, but we trust each other. We got each other. Wayne or JP?
I'm going to butt in here, and I'm going to take my man, who I've always thought has been an underdog this year, in Zach LaVine.
Oh, you see, you're reading my mind.
We called it.
Yeah, that was obvious. Mate, that was obvious from day one.
What was that? Pick 4 off the bench, and I had pick 4. Oh yeah, Brown or Levine. So in response to that, we did have a first pick, Tom, but I'm actually going to change it. We're going to take Jaylen Brown.
Mate, great minds. Check your phone. Great minds. Have a look.
Oh yeah, I just have, yeah.
Great minds think alike.
I'm surprised they've not taken down my fourth pick. He was a backup for my fourth pick, and I've changed my mind and gone Jaylen Brown. It's a complete baller.
That's fine. The thing is, when it gets to the bench here, we had this chat earlier. There's players on the bench that there's definitely one or two that we really don't want.
Yeah,
There's just one, and we're not getting him. Oh no, wait.
I have 3 down that I don't want.
No, Corey, we won't get him. We won't get him.
But they're one pick ahead of us now. Surely we're supposed to be a pick ahead, aren't we?
Picked.
No, you pick first. You pick this sub first.
No, we're not getting him. That's fine. It's fact.
You're going to get him.
JP and Wayne, over to you.
Well, the next pick, I'm going to pick the first star All-Star, Julius Randle.
That was my pick 4. So is that your 5th pick from bench?
Yeah.
I've lost track.
I've got it here. I will post in the group. Don't worry, I'm making my notes. So just to reiterate.
You tend to point shade me.
No, just to reiterate. So mine and Corey's bench so far is Zion, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Ben Simmons, Jaylen Brown. JP and Wayne, your bench so far, James Harden, Paul George, Booker, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle.
Yeah, that's sweet because you get the last pick and you're going to be stuck with this kid. So
no, we don't get the last pick. You get the last pick. Don't worry. You get the last pick.
You get pick 24.
So who's left? But
I'll tell you who's left. JP.
There's 3 names.
Left is Chris Paul, Vucevic, Doncic Sabonis, and Rudy Gobert.
Okay.
So our next pick is the banana boat crew, Chris Paul.
He's old.
He's old.
Still one of the best passing guards in the league.
So let's just Wayne. Might as well just talk over here because there's 2 left. I personally don't.
There's literally 3 left.
No, there's 3, but we're not talking about the last one. We're not.
Yeah, but you've already got him, so you might as well pick him now.
I really hope we're all on the same page of this one person. We'll wait to the end, but I hope we're all on the same page.
Are we having Vooch or are we having Sabonis? That is the question.
Bonus. More fleck.
Okay, they're going Sabonis. Okay, that's fine. They got a Sabonis.
That wingspan of Gobert's better come into question.
Our final pick, and in my eyes, the only 23 All-Stars have actually just been picked, and that is Vooch. We're taking Vooch.
Which leaves you guys with Wayne's favourite All-Star player, Rudy Gobert.
This is
I actually wrote, when we were doing the things earlier.
Yeah. Rudy Gobert can catch values.
He'll get minutes. Who just don't like him.
Imagine defensive player of the year getting picked last on a sheet like this.
I actually wrote when we were doing the picks earlier. You can see my working out here, and I was picking what you guys might pick compared to what we would pick, and I've just written there Gobert guaranteed. I knew that we had Steph Curry guaranteed. I knew that we had Zion guaranteed, and then I knew that you had Rudy Gobert no matter what.
At the end of the day, the only thing guaranteed is me and Wayne winning. Don't worry.
No dubs.
Don't
Absolutely
worry.
no dubs for you.
I'm going to read through the team. So, Team LeBron starters, if you want to write these down, are Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, with a captain LeBron James. Okay, the starters for team losers, Durant, is captained by Giannis. They are with Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic. Okay, and then the bench for the WWE Tag Team Champions are Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, Vucevic, Damian Lillard, Zion Williamson, Chris Paul, Donovan Mitchell. And then a bench for their team is Devin Booker, Paul George, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Sabonis, and then Rudy Gobert. Okay.
What's Rudy dropped 40?
So to get the points up again, so we have our 4 points from earlier, 4 points that we're going to vote on Friday in terms of skills challenge, 3-point dunk, and then team LeBron or Durant when we find out who they actually pick. But what we're going to do, guys, I'm going to put these pictures up and the starters and then the bench team up on a post and the teams that gets the most likes. So it will do team WWE Tag Team Champions as a post, and then we'll do your team Beard and Baby Boy. The Beard and Baby on one. And then whoever gets the most likes. So however you guys want to do it, we'll count that up on Sunday. Will give us a final overview of that. And then that will give us our 5th point. And then also on Sunday for our final 6th point available, we will do what we'll do, because I am going back to work on Monday. I will count up how many points each of our players get as a team. So individually, and then we'll add them up, and what team gets the most points will also win a point. So there are 6 available points from this week, which JP and Corey definitely need to get some. So it's all to play for this weekend. And as I said at the beginning of the show, we've got a bonus episode and one episode on Friday coming up with some of our mates from university. I'm going to take it back, some proper ballers, some really good players, and then Ryan Mills.
No, it's coming.
I had to get one of them in. I had to just try and throw one of them in there.
JP, Millsy, me can't really put me in that bracket.
Can't
but
put me in Millsy's bracket. Don't be silly.
Mate, I'm going to throw out there.
And a bit of big.
There was a time, and this will get talked about on Friday. There was a time that you put Wayne, me, Shem, and Greg, and then anyone else, we were winning a game.
It doesn't.
As I said, you give the guys that are coming on Friday as a group, Dweaver, Millsy, Greg, Shem, JJ, is a hell of a team, however they fit it out. So it'd be nice to have a little chat. We'll talk about uni basketball, what we're up to now, who's playing basketball still. And I know Millsy's still there with the team and how they're looking. I know they haven't had a season yet, or a season at all, but it'd be nice to sort of see how Millsy sees that team now and going forward. And the legacy that Corey left in terms of a university basketball team president, which we'll talk about all of that as well. So, guys, thanks for joining me again this week. I hope you have a good weekend, and we'll have a chat on Friday, and I'll see you in 2 days' time. See you later, boys.
No answer.
That's sweet. That's